Good evening, heroes. Привit, heroes. Learning a little bit of Ukrainian. I'm Travis Hightower, your host for the Slava Heroyam podcast. This is being pre-recorded early in the morning of April 28th, year of our Lord, 2026. I missed last week. I'm sorry about that. I just gotten really busy, and this podcast will be a day late, depending on how soon I get out of the documentary that I'm going to watch tomorrow. And as always, this channel, this podcast, commemorates the heroes, the individual heroes of Ukraine, and attempts to tell their story. I am not a journalist. I am a storyteller, and I am fascinated by the real stories of the heroes defending Ukraine against Russia's war of terror and their unprovoked invasion, which is continuing as we speak. I have been covering a series of Children in the Fire. And based on the 8 children in the documentary Children in the Fire, which hopefully will be available soon. If you're curious about the documentary itself, it was featured in episode 29. This is episode 30. So thank you for being with us. But I want to say glory to this hero, this young hero, Yana Stepanenko. I wrote about her, how she lost her legs in one of the most notorious Russian attacks on Ukraine. And she has battled all the way back to become essentially a marathon runner. But her most famous run was a 5K in the Boston 5K. And she did that to raise money for her wounded warriors. So she, being a wounded warrior herself, is now a warrior for other people like her, and an inspiration to us all. Every week on the show, this is episode 30, we have a hero of the week. We remember those who have fallen in Ukraine, whoever I can find, both heroes and civilians and victims of the human safari. And then we talk about how you can help. And there are so many different charities that are legitimate that you can help. Send even $1, $5 helps tremendously, helps more than your political campaigns that you might be donating to be honest. If you're, I'm sure that helps, but being actively involved in something is even more valuable sometimes than money. And this money saves lives. So every week I feature a new charity, and today we'll be talking about the charity of the same charity of the heroes of the week, the Brave Children of Ukraine. So the bravechildren.org. So we're talking about today. I will put the banner to that website up and go ahead and have that up for the whole episode. And we'll talk about it towards the end here. I had the honor of attending a Ukrainian church service, which I want to go to again. The entire thing was in Ukrainian. They realized there were a few Americans there, and they did their best to translate for the preacher, but the professional translator was there for the soldiers. And what I noticed about this Ukrainian service is that it was a very contemporary service. I recognized the music, even though I couldn't quite understand where we were in the words, and it motivated me to want to learn even more Ukrainian. But it also got me thinking about purpose and being called by God for what you're doing. And whenever you're on a pathway and God seems to pop up along your path, you know you're on the right one. And so this path that I've started on for Ukraine, I feel is blessed, but there are some soldiers and some civilians I'd like to bless today. So let's get to the sad part of the episode. I never like getting to this part of the episodes, but it has to be done, where we talk about civilian and innocent casualties in Ukraine, because with all the turbulent news of today, these folks often go forgotten, and they need to be put up right up front in every episode. So first we'll remember with there we go. First, we'll remember Ruslana. She's 53. She's a human safari victim. If you don't know what human safari is, check out the QR code in the top left. Make sure you view the documentary. Another frontline town, not Kherson this time, Zatomi. I hope I'm saying that right. But she was just out in her car, hunted down by a Russian FPV drone. That is the definition of human safari, where Russians attack civilians. We remember Ruslana. We will be missed. And then Saturday, we lost Natalia Ivanets. She was in the Zaporizhia region and stepped on a mine. The Ukraine is now the most heavily mined nation in the world. Afghanistan is probably would be my guess for the second. Somebody please correct me on that if I'm wrong. But being the most heavily mined nation in the world doesn't really give you an idea of how long it's going to take, the decades it's going to take to clear this danger from the land in Ukraine. And in fact, there are entire charities already being set up to do that. But we lost more than Natalia to the mines. We also lost Alexander and Paulina, a married couple. Alexander, is it Paulina? I think so. Yep. Alexander and Paulina. Alexander had been a defender and retired from the military. He had done his job. Not every Ukrainian can be asked to fight the entire length of this war the way it's going. And I know we all want it to end. But as I keep pointing out over and over, this channel can get into tactics a little bit, but it does not end with an agreement with Putin. The nations of the world need to force Putin to end the war because he's the only one who can. The popular saying, if Ukraine stops fighting, there is no Ukraine. If Russia stops fighting, the war's over. There's a lot of complicated politics that are not really all that complicated. People think they're complicated. People think there's nuclear weapons involved. But really, this is a war that should have been over for these people. And Ukraine is never safe until the Russians are gone. Lost a frontline war correspondent this week. Ukrainian producer. I'm going to call her by her nickname, Vika. Very young woman. Here's another picture of her. Frontline war correspondent. Brave job to be right up there with the soldiers. The unfortunate thing about being a war correspondent in Ukraine is you are not safe from being targeted. A blue helmet and a flak jacket that says you're part of the press does you no good. That was made abundantly clear in the documentary 3,000 Meters to Avdiivka. So if you have not seen that documentary, that is one that you can look up online, and I featured it in an earlier episode, my review of that documentary. Documentaries, you'll hear me talk about a lot, and I'm going to be attending another screening tomorrow. That's how you get the truth on Ukraine. And you can say, well, aren't documentaries biased? Not these, because the destruction in the lives, portrayed, and the soldiers that come from everywhere. And we'll talk about that in a little minute when we meet our heroes of the week. The soldiers of Ukraine that come from all around the country with different political ideals. Soldiers with different political ideals all fighting together. This is Vitalia. Vitalia is in the hospital right now. So, Lord Jesus, Ukraine has the United States and other countries have sent surgeons. May some of the best surgeons and doctors in the world reach Vitalia and help her survive. Amen. Vitalia lost both her parents in this strike that destroyed her house. I have not confirmed if this is Shahid drone artillery. The source said bombardment, but my source is not always that thorough when he's discovering. But at least he's finding all these folks that unfortunately get caught up in these terror attacks. But artillery is still a big killer of civilians, and this doesn't look like FPV drone to me, although an FPV drone can fly right into your house and kill you. The cruise missiles tend to hit the bigger cities. Looks like a smaller city, but they send the Shahed drones to all the small towns. So this is either Shahed drone or artillery. And if it was indeed a bombardment and it was artillery and it destroyed their house, this young woman is fighting for her life and her parents are gone. I don't know the story behind Volodya, but the reason I shared the story about who I wrote about, Yana, at the beginning of this podcast is because things keep coming back around to the children in the fire. And here is young Volodya, 10 years old, learning to walk again on his new legs. Hopefully he got to come to the United States just like Yana did. And there's an organization that you can find out about that helps these amputees learn to walk again. But let's go to the main topic now for this podcast, which is, now, one of the reasons I'm late is because I was trying to do like I did for the interview with Eugenie, or Eugene in some cases, the director of Children in the Fire, where I wanted to put together the whole interview with the three soldiers that we met and the three Ukrainian heroes. Three Ukrainian heroes: Ola Bonchinsky, Senior Lieutenant Commander Mykola Milink, and Dennis Haida. I'll share this tab instead. And I need to make sure it actually goes up there. There are. We'll be hearing from these gentlemen again because they'll be featured. They are promoting a documentary about Bucha because they saw what happened to Bucha themselves. All three of these men were defenders of Kyiv during the full-scale invasion in 2022, but they also have quite a longer story. And instead of trying to give you the full interview, I'm going to break it up and share it over a series of podcasts. Even if I have a guest, I will share portions of this and have it ready. But for now, let's hear an introduction from Dennis. They all three spoke this Q&A in Ukrainian. And it was after a church service. So they're speaking to mostly a Ukrainian crowd with like me and one other American. And, getting awareness for these events through the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce has been a challenge for my little bitty channel. But subscribe to this channel because the Ukrainian Chamber of Commerce here in Dallas has been really active. We've even had the First Lady of Ukraine visit us. So expect more events like this in the future. Documentary screenings, but meeting real heroes of Ukraine. So what happened? I left a little bit here at the beginning so you can meet the translator, but then I cut out the translation parts and just give you subtitles.
Ось, а потім буде безпосередньо панельна дискусія. І я думаю, перший розпочне Денис Газя, позивний Росомаха, людина, яка розпочала свій шлях боротьби за Україну 2014 року. Тому давайте, хлопці, сідаємо. Пане режисер, запускайте відео. Прошу.
So we'll start presentation with Heroyam Rosomaka, who is fighting since 2014, and we'll start the video first.
Мене звати Денис Гайда, позивний Росомаха. Мій бойовий шлях почався 2014 року з Революції Гідності, потім у складі, де брав активну участь у діях, які відбувалися на Майдані, був одним з перших, хто отримав поранення. Після Революції Гідності у складі добровольчого формування «Правий сектор» вирушив на схід України боронити нашу державу. Брав участь у боях за звільнення населеного пункту Піски, де отримав поранення. Після поранення знову повернувся до лав свого батальйону, після чого брав участь у боях за Донецький аеропорт. Після Донецького аеропорту були Авдіївська промзона. Потім, через повторюся, була Авдіївська промзона, оборона Авдіївки і далі по всій Донецькій області, практично до 2020 року. Потім пішов у відпустку. Після повномасштабного вторгнення приєднався до Збройних сил України, брав участь у боях за Київ, після того продав вже на Сумщині, потім знову переїхали на Донецький напрямок, оскільки там відбувалися найбільші бої. І свій бойовий шлях закінчив у 2024 році, коли звільнився вже з Слава.
All right. So unfortunately, instead of just sharing that video somewhere else, I imported it into my podcast system. And I can't figure out how to pause it, so I let the whole thing play. But it was only 2 minutes long. So hopefully you got kind of the whole story there. Denis started out during the Euromaidan as a protester at the Euromaidan. If you don't know what the Euromaidan is, in short, it's they ran a Putin puppet dictator out of town in 2014. That kicked off Putin annexing Crimea and him sending in Chechenian forces and other forces to kind of rally whoever they could find to form battalions of separatists. But most of the separatists were not separatists. They were, in fact, Russian. In fact, I got scolded a little bit by these soldiers by even using the word separatist. That moment should come up in another episode, but it's worth mentioning here. Denis then joined the right sector. Now, the right sector is where it gets a little bit controversial if you really know Ukraine. I may say, he joined after the Euromaidan to some of you, and you don't know what that is. But if I also say the right sector, you might not know what that is. Russia would love for you to know what the right sector is, because it's been it's a far right group. It's part of the groups of military units that Russia labeled as Nazis. And how far right are they? I'm not sure. They might be like a lot of nations these days, where they want to kick everyone else but pure Ukrainians. So, they wouldn't believe in a melting pot system. They wouldn't believe in they would think DEI is bad. And but that just goes to show you that for Ukraine, they're really kind of putting a lot of differences aside to kick out Russians. Now, eventually, Denis, when he's fighting in the East from 2014 to 2018, there isn't a professional military put together that can fight this anti-terror operation, this civil war. And a lot of people that join this fight on the side of Ukraine are just like you hear about in the news after the full-scale invasion. They're civilians, they're farmers, they had day jobs. They never dreamed of being a soldier, and they went and became soldiers. He talked about defending the Donetsk airport, which makes him a cyborg. And the defending the Donetsk airport is kind of like the one event. There are a couple that are a little bit like the Alamo in Texas. They weren't wiped out down to the man, obviously. A lot of them, and it was a rotating fight where people could leave the battle and come back and go on leave and this sort of thing. But in the end, the final defense in 2015 or so, the airport was overrun and a lot of those guys were captured. But they were called the Cyborgs because they never gave up on that location, and they held out against way superior odds. There's a whole movie about that. So Denis has a badge of pride, and here's his unit badge. He gave that to me. I also got a picture with him. I will be giving him a badge of mine tomorrow. But an incredible guy. Joining the right sector at the time, there may not have been a lot of military options to join, but that was a military option, and he joined it, and eventually he became a professional soldier, and he's an artilleryman. This is an artillery unit. This is who he fought for with the after the full-scale invasion. He fought in Kyiv, and we're going to learn more about that next time. So Denis Haida will be our hero of the week. It'll be a while before I write about him, because I'll be writing about the children in the fire. Right, and Denis would want me to be talking more about this than him. Anyway, wanted me to talk more about the children, because these three soldiers are the founders of a charity called bravechildren.org that is set up to assist the orphans of Ukraine who have lost one or both parents in the war. They have merchandise you can buy, which I think this is the first charity I have shown you besides Wingmen for Ukraine who has merchandise that you can buy. And, I've also, I don't know what charity it is, but there's one that, makes the keychains out of the tank material. That's a good one too. But merchandise is a good way to tell that, that your charity is legit. And another one is the way you can make a donation. They've got the bank account listed. There's a USA account to go through that you can call and confirm that your donation went through. So this is all very legit. These soldiers know what they're doing. because I have made the mistake of sharing charities that may have been questionable before. But this one, what's more basic about a war-torn country than helping the orphans? And there they have QR codes. But you'll see the team here. Mikola, a British, Dr. Philip A. Carber. I mean, this is the real deal here, guys. Dennis, there he is, hero of the week. He looks gritty there, but he came up to me just kind of like happy-go-lucky guy. And then Oleg, all of them have been wounded in some way that caused them to have to retire. Alec Ronan. There's some more people. These people are doing the Lord's work. So there it is. Had trouble sharing the website, so hopefully by the third time I got it right. And it is 1:30 in the morning. So I'm going to head off to bed. But as always, glory to those who support and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. Slava Ukraini and Heroyam Slava.